Hi everybody, the Chattering Magpie here. In only a matter of hours, the official English translation of Ascendance of a Bookworm light novel Part 4 Volume 8 is going to be released. And I promise you, it's a volume you do not want to miss. In preparation for it, I, along with my fellow Bookworm fans, Crazy Maton, Brandon, and Jonathan, got together to do a quick recap and summary/review of the previous volume, that is Part 4, Volume 7, to catch you up to speed so that all the dramatic events that took place in this book will be fresh in your mind as you read the next volume. We had a blast recording this, but please excuse the audio. We recorded it over on Discord voice chat, and I'm still learning how to do tech stuff. I hope you still enjoy it though. If you would like to join us for the next video, whether it is for our members only read aloud, or for another chit-chat like this one, then be sure to become a member on my Ko-fi so you can have access to my Discord server, where I post updates of what we're reading together and what we're recording. Okay, let's do this. Part 4, Volume 7. After fainting at a tea party for bookworms, Myne is forcibly returned to Ehrenfest. There, she reunites with her lower city associates and enjoys some long-awaited reading in the temple. But as peaceful as these winter days may seem, a revelation in the Bible threatens to turn her days of reclusion on their head. Myne's second year at the Royal Academy draws to a close with interrogation and investigations, which she must face on top of a resolute apprentice who wishes to swear his name to her. Things only become more complicated when she attends the inter-duchy tournament for the first time, and the grave development causes more trouble than ever expected. Can she and Ferdinand manage the chaos so soon before the graduation ceremony? Tensions between duchies are high in the newest volume of this mega hit bibliofantasy, and includes 2 love stories of graduated students and a 4-panel manga by 𝐁𝐀𝐂𝐃. Alright, that is very informative blurb. So the prologue, it's actually really cute because it starts with a Hannelore, and who doesn't love a good Hannelore point of view, right? There is a freak out after Myne collapses. And
again.
Yeah, again. So we have Will and Charlotte. They come in to clean up the mess, save the day. And Wilfred takes Hannelore back to her dorm, tells her it's okay, everything's gonna be okay. And meanwhile, in the Dunkelfelder dorms, she has to go and talk to her older brother, Lesty, who is really forceful actually, and they need to know what happened at the tea party because royalty was involved, so they have to tell their parents all about it. So, but the thing here that happens is that Hannelore has the manuscript that Myne made about the Dunkelfelder stories in her possession, and they're supposed to go over it and make sure that it has no errors and stuff. So they kind of start fighting over it, and this manuscript that has been rewritten is actually gonna come up later. But it's a really interesting little story from her point of view, because we also get Clarissa, who actually manages to startle everyone, and because she's like, no, I will not give you this manuscript, and she's telling that to Lestalot, who's going to be their future op. So she has that audacity, right? But all that's sorted out, Cordelia comes up with a solution. But yeah, that's the prologue. But now the next couple of chapters are just basically Myne going back to Ehrenfest, meeting with her guardians, and a tea party with her mothers. Now, Florencia had told Ferdinand and Sylvester not to scold her or to be harsh with her, because they had been really harsh the first year. So, and that's why this time Sylvester was kind of he was just dispirited. He didn't scold her as much. Myne learns that her anecdotal reports weren't cutting it, because she was trying to do dear diary kind of reports to her family. They were very emotional, and apparently that's not cutting it. So she learns to write them as she would for work. Also,
there's a reason behind that too.
Yes, there's a reason behind that too.
Yeah, she was like, okay, they're getting 5 reports, and those ones are incredibly detailed. So what's the point of me just repeating what they say? So I'll just, since they've got the more plainly this happened and this happened and this happened type report, I should just tell you how I'm feeling and do more of a diary style, kind of like you do in grade school.
Yeah, she said that it was kind of like a kid writing to her parents while they were at camp or something like that. Very anecdotal, and that's definitely not cutting it. So here we learn during this meeting with her parentals that her problems boil down to basically she's getting too chummy with royalty. This is Hildebrand, because even though he's a precious cinnamon roll, he's still royalty, and she thinks of him as a friend. And she kind of just forgets that he's the son of a king. She's not someone she can order around or freely give gifts to. In the previous volume, she said she noticed that he wanted to have an armband. So she's just like, oh, I'm going to give you an armband, without consulting with her family first. And she also told him, hey, you know what? You can be involved by sending the ordinances to the students at the end of the year so that they don't keep the books. So he's like, cool. And everybody else is absolutely stunned, shocked, dismayed, because she just ordered royalty around, and that's a no-no. You do not do that. Next, they talk about the spell for making black weapons, their dangers, and why Rosamine should not have used the blessing or the prayer for the dark weapons.
It says that there's one thing that's more dangerous than a fey beast, and that's humans. So during the first war, there's certain duchies that would use black weapons to attack other duchies. So after that, they forbid students from learning it. And if I'm remembering properly, knights, the reason why Ehrenfest knows it is they've been granted it as an exception.
Right, because they have mana-stealing babies like Trombe's. And not all knights learn the black spell. Only the knights that work to fight to kill Trombe's learn the black spell. So that means that it's very exclusive, and they make sure that not everybody learns that spell.
That's right. In fact, when they're talking about this, they go back to the time when Rosamine was Myne, and they're like, well, ever since the 𝐁𝐀𝐂𝐊 incident, they've been very, very careful about who can learn the spells. Not everybody gets to learn that. So the fact that Rosamine went and gave and made all of these students from the Royal Academy have darkness weapons and attack, that was a very big no-no. Later on in the book, we get to the point that even when there's like tennis befallens all around them and attacking, and they still cannot use those darkness weapons and join and defend the Royal Academy and the royal family until they get permission, explicit permission from the king. And final thing that I made of note here during this section, when she's, talking to her parentals, is when she was at a tea party with Florencia and Elvira, she learns that Aurelia is pregnant. So that's also good news.
We also learn in that how the struggles of giving birth to noble children, in that there's a bit of a balancing act, because during pregnancy they provide mana to the child. However, if you don't give enough, then they basically end up like a blue priest and shunned in noble society. Give them too much though, and there's a good chance of causing a miscarriage and also harming the mother.
Man, I can't even imagine how difficult it must be to be a noble woman. Like, how do you handle that childbearing thing? Because you want to make sure that your child is healthy, but it's also full of magical potential. So it's a delicate balancing act. Now, moving on from that, Rosamine spent some days at the castle, and she's spending time with Sylvester, helping him in his work. While she's doing this, Sylvester suddenly talks about the miracle at Heldenzel. Remember how they had spring come really quick? So now every other Ghib in Ehrenfest wants to know the secret to bring the spring sooner. So he's like, well, I can't find information about this. Can you look into your Bible? And she's like, well, I guess I could. So he tells her to go into the temple and spend time, just relax, Rosamine, spend all this time that you want in the temple and just research the stuff. He's basically giving her time off. He's giving her time off, supposedly, to read in blissful peace while he goes and runs off to do who knows what, right? She, of course, doesn't catch on to this. So she happily goes to the temple.
As soon as she opens the Bible, she finds that there is a massive glowing magic circle at the first page. Although she doesn't want to read it at first, she decides to, and she notices that it's the instructions to becoming ZENT. And she starts to panic. So the first thing she thinks about is to have her attendant her attendants look at it to see if they see anything. They say they can't see anything. Even after she gets permission to Daniel and Angelica, they can't see anything other than the words that are in ink. So she rescinds her permission, and the first thing she thinks is she has to call Ferdinand because this is an emergency.
Basically, he says he sits her down in the secret room, by the way, and they sit down. He's like, okay, what do you see? She tells him what she sees. He's like, what do you want to be a ZENT? Do you want to rule? And basically, at this point, I'm saying that he is willing to deal with her if she even wants to say she wants to become king, because it will cause, oh my gosh, so much chaos. So he would definitely have assassinated her right there and then if she had said she wanted to be ZENT. But luckily, our bookworm only wants one thing, and that is to read. So because she says, I don't want to be king, he's like, okay, then just forget you ever saw the circle and don't tell anybody about the circle. The funny thing is that he also explains that the current king has no 𝐁𝐸𝐻𝐻, which is the book that the ZENT needs to rule. Therefore, he's not considered to be a true ZENT. So the question here is, why did she suddenly have this ability to see the circle?
It hasn't been explicitly stated, other than the fact that she has all 7 elements, and she's been praying to the gods ever since she entered the temple.
One of the things that I thought was curious is that Ferdinand also tells her that this is the first time that he saw the circle in the Bible. So whatever happened, it must have happened in the past 2 volumes or so, because the last time that he opened the bishop's Bible and he looked at it was after the Haldensel miracle, and there was no circle for him and there was no circle for her. So if we want to go back to see what the cue or what happened that made a difference, it's somewhere in the last 1 or 2 books. I have an idea what it was, but I'm not going to share what it was. So, pardon?
It has to be when she joined the school. Something in the school.
The only thing I can think of would be the Turnish-Befallen incident, but that's speculation.
Yeah. So
there is another event that happened, actually, that was barely touched upon. But it was when she visited the library again, and both Schwartz and Weiss told Rosamine to basically pray onto the 𝐁𝐸𝐻𝐻 that the statue was holding. And as soon as she did that, a lot of mana was drained from her all at once.
Yeah.
And she was surprised for a bit, but nothing seemed to happen. So it could have been the triggering point for her. Basically, maybe it was scanning her to see if she had the qualities of a ZENT.
We can continue speculating. Leave your speculations, no spoilers, in the comments below. So, but yeah, this is definitely something that's really curious, and we'll see if it gets answered soon. If not, it'll be maybe at the end of the book, how. Ferdinand admonishes Rosamine to keep the circle secret and to, not to tell anybody that she can see it, because otherwise she's going to be in a world of danger. Which brings to mind, Ferdinand knows a lot of things, about becoming ZENT. So he's a secretive devil, but he's definitely qualified to be ZENT. He can see the circle. He has a lot of mana. He has all the elements. His background gets even more and more interesting. And by the end of this book, we're just wondering, who is he? But we're gonna delve into that later, I suppose, in the next volumes. Rosamine does a dedication ceremony at the temple, and then she spends her days in the castle. You know, it's just like, you know, this and that at the castle. That's literally the chapter title. It's this and that at the castle. There's two things that they discuss here. First of all is she teaches Bonifacius and Ferdinand about the water gun. Do you all remember that she invented the water gun and she showed it to her, you know, her mentors?
It is definitely an interesting gimmick she invented.
I want to see some fan art of Ferdinand holding a toy water gun.
Yeah.
Oh, he did manage to make his look black though, and bigger. I almost imagine him with a super sucker.
He's able to like replicate it right after he's twisted her hand to study it. You know, he's like trying to see how it works and the mechanisms. Finally, he's able to replicate it, and when he tries it on a practice dummy, it totally shatters the dummy, you know, tears the dummy apart with his shot. So it's actually a very good and very handy weapon. Bonifacius, meanwhile, can't do the gun, can't replicate it yet because he can't master the actual spell, which Rosamine invented, you know, water gun. So he's like, water gun? That was so cute. Grandpa Bonnie really wants his gun, but he can't make it just yet.
Can't pronounce water gun.
Can't pronounce water gun. Now, the second thing that they talk about while in the castle is Eustace explains the issue about name giving, because remember, right now, Roderick wants to give her his name, and she's very hesitant about receiving his name. So, but Eustace is able to explain to her, no, this is important and you should listen to his wishes, and explains a little bit about what he's been going through, Roderick, behind the scenes. So I think after this, she is more, you know, she's more open to receiving it than she was before. Because before she was just like super freaked out, like, this blind show of devotion is freaks her out. So, but now she's more okay with it. Now, after this, she has to go back to the dorm. And she doesn't want to go back to the dorm, but she has to because, first of all, she has to socialize. But most importantly, she has a tennis befallen inquiry. She goes in, no retainers. And she goes in and they, you know, at home they told her, stick to the plan. Your temple upbringing means that the only weapons and tools you're familiar with are divine instruments. And the reason why you know all the blessings is because you don't know anything except the temple stuff. So that's how you know Bible stuff. That's where it came from. There's no ulterior or dark motive. That's just who you are. So she keeps using her same excuse, I am the High Bishop, and that is simply how things are done in the 𝐴hrenfest temple, and Lord Ferdinand taught me as much. So those were her you know, what she can fall back on in case something got really, really tough.
Well, then you have Frolarm in that conversation.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure during that whole inquiry, everyone was thinking, would you just shut up?
Oh my.
That kind of thing.
Frolarm is so annoying. Why is she even there? Yeah, she's super annoying.
Because she's a professor.
Not just because she was a professor, but because she was a professor for Arnsbach. And Arnsbach and Dunkelfelder were both involved because Old Weckerstock, which was the duchy that was purged during the Civil War, was where the Turners Befallens were native to. So obviously they were going to search their duchies since they are in control of Old Weckerstock land. Oh. So that's why the professors were involved.
Okay. So these are the people that are on that meeting. There's Raufin, who is the Dunkelfelder dorm guy. There's Raublut, which is the Sovereign Knight Commander, which Rosamine meets for the very first time. There's Emmanuel, the Sovereign Temple's High Priest. Again, she meets him for the very first time. There's Hildebrand, who is representing the royal family here, and Arthur, his attendant. And then there are various professors of the Royal Academy, including Hersher, Frolarm, and Gundulf. Now, the issue here that they want to talk about, that's like two issues, but the first one is that how can it be that she was able to give the darkness blessing to the apprentice knights of when they were fighting the tennis befallen? She explains the fact that she saw it from the Bible, and then they're like, well, this makes no sense. So they try to like they're basically make all kinds of accusations and stuff, and in response she manages to offend everyone in the room, telling them that they are basically dumb, plus calling the sovereignty Bible into question in the process.
Right. She essentially says, asking me why I know the prayer from the Bible is like asking every glebe who he desires.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly the phrasing that she said. And even Hershey is like, yo, dude, I know that Ferdinand is your mentor, but you really don't have to speak with venom and, you know, sarcasm, basically, the way that he is, because she was pretty offensive with that, with that statement.
She was offended. I mean, she was offended.
To be fair, though, they kept on asking her the same questions over and over again. Like, I know this stuff because it's what's expected of my job.
I mean, it is a norm to be incompetent when it comes to like the temple duties, because everybody is so lacking in mana. So she's just not fitting the norm here.
And unfortunately, it wasn't always like that, though. It was explained during this in her inner monologue during this inquiry. It's when she really figured out that the church really did have a lot more power in the past. It was only until recently, within the last 200 years, that the church has become a place where you throw all your undesirable nobles in. But before, it was actually such a high place of power that you send your archduke candidates there. That was when she figures out that to become ZENT, that's the reason for the Bibles, for the special magical Bibles that only the High Bishop can lead. Because those are basically exact copies of the original 𝐁𝐀𝐂𝐋𝐄. So anybody who has the qualities to become ZENT will be found out as they work as the High Bishop.
That's something that Ferdinand says about that the 𝐁𝐀𝐂𝐋𝐄 is basically a exact copy of the Bishop's Bible. I don't know if that is entirely true, though.
How would he know that?
Yeah, that's
too, because it's like
thing.
It's this thing that only the king should know about, and it's lost to time. So even though I know Ferdinand likes to research things like crazy, I don't feel like there would be written records of this stuff or like that.
Yeah.
And I highly doubt it would be taught in an Archduke course.
Yeah, I think that was just him trying to like say like this is what it should be. But I don't think that's correct, because he wouldn't have seen the original 𝐁𝐂𝐋𝐄 that was passed down.
I think he was theorizing.
Yeah, or he was just trying to tell Myne not to go look for it, because if it was a book that had extra information that she could never see, she would definitely go on a rampage and go look for it. So by telling her, hey, it's just basically your bishop's Bible, he basically was able to calm her down. She's like, oh well, if it's just the bishop's Bible, then it's not nothing special, not a book I need to go look for. So
the limited edition. It's the limited edition High Bishop's Bible.
Leather bound, right?
Plus, extra.
Yeah.
So we had to take that information that Ferdinand gave her with a grain of salt. That was the first thing that they had to talk about, the blessing that she gave. And the second thing that they had to talk about was the regeneration of the Ehrenfest collection site.
Again, the problem is they keep comparing it to low mana blue priests.
Yeah, that they brought up the point that there's no way she would have had enough mana, because it takes dozens of blue priests days to finish regenerating a spot of that much damage. But then that's when she points out that she can't be compared to a blue priest, because not only does she have enough mana to be an Archduke candidate, but she's already learned her mana compression method. So she would have many times more mana than a regular blue priest, especially since the priests have less mana than most men nobles and lay nobles to begin with.
Yeah, and additionally, she has access to all kinds of high quality potions that the priest wouldn't have. So even though she was depleted, like she was able to chug down a potion, and she just restored her mana and continued and soldiered through and got it done, right? So we got those things that she had to clarify, like, I'm not your usual temple shrine maiden. I am High Bishop and I am OP. Another thing is, how were you able to do it without the divine instruments? Because usually you would have to have the sovereignty temple bring the full trained staff, and that's how you do your regeneration.
Well, he does the OP thing and just uses her staff to make the, divine instrument. Because that's what just Myne does.
The fact that Hildebrand wanted to see it, he was like, well, I would like to see a divine instrument, bless his soul. So she's like, well, I guess since you're royalty, I have to comply with your request. So she, out comes the full trained staff. And, we know that it is a thing of beauty.
There's a funny part before that happens, though, too.
What happened? Tell me.
So, you know how Frolon's been, like, yelling and screaming the entire time? And they're like, so they ask, how did you perform it so quickly? And she's like, the high priest is correct. And she starts screaming how weird it is and how weird her high beast is. And at the end, Rosamine just thinks, I just want to go home. I want to go home and read. Like, she's just done at that point.
While everybody's talking there, there's this strange kind of power play going on, and at first she's not really aware of it. The Sovereignty Knight Commander and the High Bishop of the Sovereignty Temple, they're at odds, and they're trying to prove each other, trying to use the investigation and all the things that she's talking about to, like, kind of beat back the claims of the Sovereignty Church. Emmanuel is part of the fundamentalist groups. And as a representative of the sovereignty, Raublut is like, you know what, you need to shut up. And when he sees an opportunity to call into question the claims of the fundamentalists, he goes for it. So it's a very interesting thing that happens here. And unfortunately, Rosamine doesn't realize what's going on until the very end, when she realizes, oh no, I may have just poured, oil over all these flames, because this is actually going to bring about a second inquiry. So the second one is the Bible inspection meeting. And in this one, they actually give Rosamine a letter summoning her guardians, or her guardian. And it says that in all of Ehrenfest's history, nobody had ever had their parents or the guardians summoned to the Royal Academy. Because it's seen as like, ooh, like ultimate trouble. Like if your parents are called to the school, that means that you screwed up big time.
It's been constantly implied that because Rosamine wasn't raised as a true noble since birth, that she doesn't have all these preconceived notions of how things should work. And that's why she does all these things, these amazing things. Like, there's been countless examples, like reforming a face stone after it's broken, and being able to recreate the divine instruments just by imagining them in her mind, or by making a high beast that looks like almost like a carriage fly that doesn't have wings. So because she doesn't have all these preconceived notions of a high beast without wings can't fly, then she obviously has the ability to make things that she imagines come to life.
Yeah, another first that I remembered, it's from way back when. It's she was actually the very first blue-robed, either shrine maiden or priest, who had ever been locked inside the isolation or the reflection chamber. Like, nobody before had ever gotten into trouble and sent to the reflection chamber. It was only great priests or little unruly kids from the orphanage. So she's one for firsts. So after that, Ferdinand comes in, and so that they can compare the Bibles. And what they come out with basically is the Bible can only be read in its entirety by those with strong mana. The temple folks, the high bishop, whose name is Religion, whatever you want to call it.
Really creative,
Yeah.
Kazuki.
Yeah, I bet she
Yeah,
didn't.
let's name the guy religion.
Religion. That's a high priest of the sovereignty temple. Religion can't read it. Emmanuel can't read it. They can't read it in its entirety, and no one can read the sovereignty's Bible past the point that the high bishop can. Even Myne and Ferdinand couldn't read that Bible because the owner of that Bible, religion, he can't read past a certain point, so they couldn't read past a certain point, and also they couldn't see the magic circles there either. Whereas
it's not, they lied that they couldn't do that.
Of course, they didn't say like, oh, I can't see circles in there either. They just said like, they didn't mention the magic circles at all, but they did say like the text in the ink text in the Bible, they could only see up to a certain point that everybody else could. And when they were asked like, okay, now let's look at the Ehrenfest Bible, people could see more of the Ehrenfest Bible. Again, people are limited to how much mana they have. So when Raublut, the Knight Commander, asks, or I don't know who was the other one, they ask, okay, so how far along can you read? Rosamine is like, she thinks I can read all of it, but she looks at Ferdinand and he answers for them, well, we can only see up to this point. So obviously Ferdinand lied, and obviously it seemed that Raublut caught on because you can see his expression kind of like looks suspicious. Raublut guy, he seems to have an agenda, and we don't know. We don't know
this whole book is Chekhov's armory.
One of the things I do remember him saying, specifically quoting him, we should have called upon her when we asked for Blue Priest to come to Sovereign Temple.
Yeah, Emmanuel is like, and now is looking at Myne as somebody that he wants to use for the temple. He's described as being very, like, his gaze, he's just very like unnerving to Rosamine, especially because he looks like a fanatic, those kind of like looks. And I mean, I'm not gonna say I like fanatics. I can stand a fanatic. I can stand a Hartmut, but I don't like the way that Emmanuel seems to like be looking at Myne, like as a pawn in this game, So
right, Harmut looks at Rosamine with admiration, but Emmanuel looks at Rosamine like something to exploit.
Yeah.
So it's a different type of fanaticism.
For sure. So thankfully, her claim that the prayer for the black weapons is in the Bible. They finally say, okay, yeah, it checks out. She's cleared of that. However, like somebody brought up, Emmanuel wants Rosamine to become the high bishop for the sovereignty temple.
in front of his boss, no less.
That's right.
In front of the high bishop.
Yeah, in front of his boss, he tells him that, and of course, religion is not very happy about that. So we get tea parties. So let's just go through this quickly. Tea parties, she prepares. There's a special necklace that lets Rosamine play with her friends and talk about books, and it'll let her know when she should withdraw from the party, so that she will not collapse. We also have the hairpin for Adolphine. It is given during the Dragonshell tea party, which is a tea party for all the top-ranking duchies. And in this tea party, not only does Rosamine end up seducing Adolphine with her pretty words and compliments, just as she did Eglantine, but also Adolphine steps in and intervenes when Detlind is trying to, force Rosamine to get her hairpin for her graduation. And I think that was a pretty... she basically put her in her place, telling her to, get your partner to make an order for you, just as my partner did for me.
Yeah, Adolphine gave her a metaphorical hip check right there.
Yeah, and
I gotta say, she's been really aggressive with Rosamine.
Yeah.
Trying to really strong arm her into being compliant.
Yeah.
Which...
You know what? I get why some people would be turned off by Adolphine, but I personally, I like her. She might be, like I want this and very like bossy sometimes.
Well, she's trying to see how far she can push Myne.
Yeah.
How far she can get her under her thumb.
But she's not trying to be underhanded about it. Like Myne knows that she has to be on guard, and it's fair and above board. What I have problem with is people who act nice and then could turn around and use the fact that Myne is friendly towards them to get concessions. So I would rather have Adolphine show all her cards in that way, and be able and just Rosamine be able to be like, okay, I'm preparing for you. You're probably gonna steal my Rinsham recipe. You're probably gonna try to recreate the hairpins that I make, but you know what, I'm ready for you. Whereas I appreciate that, at least that she's straightforward in that respect. So, and I think what I appreciated most about her is that she stood up for Rosamine during this confrontation with that Arensbeck girl. She was not going to take no for an answer, and it took Adolphine stepping in order for her to back off. So yeah, I appreciate that about Adolphine, at least. So then we get Roderick's name swearing, and he finally finishes the offering to Rosamine and his name stone, thanks to Hartmut's help. And Hartmut wants to be the one to witness the name swearing. Rosamine doesn't want him to do it because she's like, you're gonna be really freaky and creepy about this. But he's like, okay, fine. If you don't let me see it, then I will prepare my own name swearing stone, and then I will give you my name. That way I can experience it firsthand. So she's like, okay, it's okay. You just come in and watch it. It's fine. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just come and watch it.
Well, she does get slightly frustrated at how easily he manipulated her.
So we have that name swearing ceremony in which Roderick basically now is one of Rosamine's retainers, and that's going to change his life for the better. And I'm glad for it, because it seems that he had a really, really rough time at home.
So he's going to be Ehrenfest's Stephen King.
I think he invents a new genre, right? He does.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
he does. Straight up does.
Yeah, so that's awesome. He invents the coming of age story. That's pretty awesome. Good for you, Roderick. Now we get the inter-duchy tournament, all the preparations. So we learned that all about Ferdinand's cape. We've been talking about Ferdinand's cape in this channel a lot.
How it randomly changes colors.
Yeah. So we learned why Ferdinand's cape is blue.
He won it in a dinner match.
That's right, he won
against a Dunkelfelder noble, and he kept that one, but his yellow cape was taken away when he went to the temple, since he is no longer an Ehrenfest noble, so to speak. So
when he was coming in for the inter-duchy tournament, Sylvester's like, hey, why are you wearing blue? He's like, I don't have a yellow one. Your mother took it. He's like, what? So Sylvester gave Ferdinand a proper dark yellow cape, so that he would have the Ehrenfest colors. Unfortunately, this cape does not have the protective circles, but he's still pretty happy to have gotten it. Now, in the inter-duchy tournament, we get several things happening. Froalarm summons a really difficult and obscure Fey beast for Ehrenfest. That was unfair, and I was like, why would they let Froalarm do that again? But thankfully, the Ehrenfest students were able to, they were able to overcome it. And second, Hartmut introduces Clarissa as his marriage partner, and they talk about their outlandish proposal. And if you all want to read more about how it happened, see the Royal Academy stories for that one. It's super funny.
Semi-lewd also for noble standards.
Yeah, semi-lewd. That was actually very lewd. The Royal Academy story says that she actually planted a kiss on his lips and poured her mana on him as she did. So yeah, that's like X rated.
Holding hands is considered lewd in noble society, for anyone who hasn't picked up on that yet.
Yeah, so imagine kissing and pouring mana. Oh my goodness, what are you doing?
She is a Dunkelfelder woman.
Dunkelfelder.
It's been implied. Ferdinand has implied that he's had a similar experience.
I imagine that there were several attempts to get him in that compromising position when he was a student. I totally see it. So, but Ferdinand is Ferdinand, so I bet he was able to outmaneuver his opponents, I'm sure. I mean, so the two big things that happened during this time is the attack during the award ceremony. Oh no, actually it's the first one is a ditter for the publishing rights, because Ab Armfest challenges Rosamine to ditter for rights to print the book.
He was very forceful in the way he said it. He basically said, "Here's the book, fight me for it."
So everybody wants ditter. He challenges to a ditter fight without, and then Sylvester gets involved. Sylvester's like, "Rosamine, just, give it up, whatever." He's like, "How much did you spend on that book?" She's like, 18 large gold coins. 18 large gold coins, people.
On a hobby.
On a
basically.
hobby. On one book. That is an insane amount of money.
And it could have been even more expensive, but she used the Ehrenfest paper.
Mm-hmm. So then it was really, really necessary for Myne to get her rights for the book. So ultimately they are able to rope Ferdinand into the ditter. He only plays along because he was baited using, rare ingredients as part of like his winnings.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise,
and not just one ingredient. We're talking like plenty of ingredients.
Lots of ingredients for sure. And only then was he talked into playing ditter.
With Hashit's, the guy who lost his cape. He wants it back. So that's why Ferdinand got involved. Mm-hmm. And another reason Ferdinand got involved, which will be explained later in Part 4, Volume A, actually. I'm not going to spoil it here. Is the reason for why he wanted those ingredients in exchange for the challenge. Hashit's wanted to fight Ferdinand again, and Ferdinand at first didn't want anything to do with it until Hashit started to list off the ingredients.
And the thing is, that those ingredients are only found in Dunkelfelder.
Yeah, you can't find those rare ingredients anywhere except Dunkelfelder, which is why that was perfect bait for Ferdinand. So yeah, they play ditter. They do the ditter. For once, Ferdinand seems to really struggle to win a match. Let's just remember that he's playing against the guy who basically fights for a living, fights every day from a fighting duchy. So, yeah, he's not your typical opponent, let's just say.
𝐻𝐿𝐿.
Yeah, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 is playing for the cape, the blue cape that Ferdinand won from him years and years ago, from back in their Royal Academy days. This cape, remember people that usually your women or your fiancés, they will embroider, or your wives, they will embroider your cape. So the fact that Ferdinand is using 𝐻𝐿𝐿's cape, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 wants it back because that's a cape that his girlfriend or his fiancé or whatever embroidered for him, so he wants it back. And also they're also playing for the book. So in this case, the treasures are going to be Hannelore on the Dunkelfelder side and Myne on the Ehrenfest side. So the point is, Ferdinand has to get Hannelore out of her circle before Rosamine gets thrown out of hers. So that's how the game goes. Rosamine already knows the drill. She gets on her high beast and she makes a Schützerius shield around her high beast, so nobody can penetrate that, of course. That actually is a really exciting match. Like I said, it actually shows that Ferdinand struggles quite a bit, to the point that even though he told Rosamine to not get involved and just to sit quietly, she had to pray to Angriff to give him an extra boost, and it actually helped him.
Although he implied that he would have won anyways, he was just pretending to struggle to get him into a false sense of security so that he could surprise him.
Mm-hmm. He actually had quite a few things up his sleeve, and he used them to his full advantage. He had the amulets that fend from magic and physical attacks. He got those from Rosamine, so he's like, here, give me some of your amulets, so he got those. He also had Rosamine, well, this was nothing he asked for, but Rosamine blessed him, and it seems to have helped him. He also used the water gun, which is this mysterious new weapon that nobody had ever seen, and they're like the Dunkelfelders, they were like, what is this? That's awesome! But he would not answer any questions about it. Good on you, Ferdinand. That's trademarked stuff. copyrighted.
And exploding face stones too.
Exploding face stones. And also when he seemed to be like totally like, well, there was a point where it seemed like he couldn't ward off a big attack. He used the cape as a shield to ward off 𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 attack. So he used the actual thing that 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 was playing for as, you know, his shield, and that made him not get attacked. So that was considered to be a very...
It was a slight hesitation.
That was...
Classic Lord of Evil there.
Classic Lord of Evil. The 𝐁𝐀𝐂𝐊, they were like, what did he do? But they loved it. I think they're Ferdinand's biggest fangirls, in my opinion. I think they were kind of cheering on for Ferdinand as much as they were cheering for 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 in this dinner.
Well, he actually did take a beating, Ferdinand. At the end of it, he looked haggard. He was just playing it off that he was okay.
He was covered in little wounds, or in small wounds, and at the end of it all, Rosamine offered healing to the parties involved, and then Ferdinand's like, okay, so you're very saintly trying to, you know, heal your enemies, but can you at least heal your allies too? And she looks up and she's like, and she just suddenly realizes that, yeah, he's been wounded. And she's like, well, you need to stop acting strong. You know, you have to show your weaknesses to your allies too. And he's like, you fool, you never show your weaknesses. So, again, it's the reoccurrence of the fool. I don't know. Every time he calls somebody a fool, it just makes me laugh. I don't know. So yeah, she heals him then. But the action is far from over, because during the awards ceremony, suddenly there are explosions all around. There's pillars of roaring flame and suicide bombers and tennis befallens just attacking suddenly.
So it turns out that it's the faction of the fundamentalists that was planning this attack from the beginning. They started by causing a commotion by releasing the tennis befallens onto all of the duchies surrounding in the ceremony, hoping that they would eat as many of the people there as possible, grow large enough so that they can fight back, and eventually use that as a distraction so that they can get close to the royal family and try to kill the 𝐁𝐻𝐿𝐻 king. During all this, Rosamine decided to just cover the entirety of Ehrenfest's spot in a Shitsara's shield, and that kept casualties to basically nothing, just a few injuries.
And while that's happening, her apprentice knights are all like, hey, give us the black weapon, and luckily she's smart enough to say no.
That's right. There's a tennis befallen that's actually really close to the Ehrenfest side, and Ferdinand is actually attacked by it, and it slashes his cloak, slashes his back, but he's like, that's fine, you know, let's attack this thing. He, Eckhart, and Karstedt do like a major, like full all-out power attack against the tennis befallen using their darkness weapons, and basically it just blows everybody in the vicinity away, like whoosh, everybody's just blown away by the impact, literally. So
I think you're forgetting one thing. The attack on Ferdinand or Rosamine by one kid from another duchy.
Oh yes, that actually happened before, a little bit before though.
And it was actually a student that was jealous of Hartmut.
Yes. Because
Hartmut was courting a lot of women, trying to get information. So it turns out that one of the girls he was interested in was going for Hartmut instead. And he was jealous of that, so he decided he wanted to throw a face stone at him, like secretly. Instead, he missed because Hartmut got out of the way and hit Rosamine, which triggered her physical charm to activate.
Task failed successfully.
So one other thing that I have to note is one of my favorite illustrations of Ferdinand is when it's in this chapter, and that is when there's a graphic scene where the sovereign knights, they basically dispatch the terrorists. So Ferdinand tells Rosamine and Charlotte, girls, like, close your eyes, and because there's something bad, so he hides them under his sleeve so that they don't see what's going on. So I love that picture. If I could, I would enlarge it and frame it and put it in like a big, canvas, hang it on top of my desk, because I guess I should.
It's the second time that it's been implied that people who wear who basically blow themselves up with their own mana on purpose.
Yes. So what was going on in this attack ceremony, we had kind of suicide bombers. They were feeding themselves to the tennis befallens that were near the royals in order to give the tennis befallens power. So that's incredibly disturbing. So that's why at some point Ferdinand was like, dudes, girls, close your eyes. So that happened. They dealt with that. In the aftermath, Myne misses the award ceremony. The royal family wants to use her kind of as to reinforce their own position. So they want to use her, but she's like, I don't want to get involved. So they tell her, avoid it. We're gonna say that you're too weak. So she's able to see the sword dance, Cornelius' sword dance, and the dedication whirls. But after that, she just goes back to the dormitory.
It was during the dedication whirl that Ferdinand decided that, here, have this sound blocking magic tool just in case you say something. And it turns out it was a good idea, because when the dedication whirl started, the same magic circle that was on the Bible appeared up in the air as all the students were whirling. So she said, "Oh, it's the same magic circle." I was like, "Wait, Rosamine? I thought we both agreed we never saw anything." Like, "Oh, yeah, you're right."
You didn't see it. It totally wasn't a magic circle there. Yep, nope.
The foresight Ferdinand has is astounding.
He can see 3, 4, 5. I don't know how many steps ahead, but yeah.
Ferdinand is 4D chess master while everybody else is playing checkers. That's smart.
Yeah. And another point that I found really interesting was Elvira gave us a little extra tidbit of information about her own time as a student, that Veronica didn't allow her parents to go to see her graduation ceremony because Veronica was being Veronica and Elvira was from a different faction. So that just goes to make you see just how hateful the woman is. And speaking of Veronica, did you all see the newest sketch of Veronica that they released lately?
It's an ugly version of Detland. Detland as a hag.
Oh my gosh, she just gives me the chills. That Veronica picture gives me the chills, and that's just a sketch.
Honestly, I feel bad for Lamprecht's wife.
Aurelia.
Because Aurelia is implied that she looks exactly like.
Yes. Yeah, they say that she
like
looks
a clone,
like him.
basically.
Yeah. The poor girl has to keep her veil on. Yeah, after I saw Veronica, I was like, this woman is. It's not that she's ugly. She's old, but that doesn't mean that she's ugly. It's just the expression of maliciousness, that malignant expression that it's terrible to see. So, but.
She has permanent resting.
Yeah, that face. So one other thing that happens in the aftermath is she and Ferdinand go to the library this time because she needs to give the little Shumils, their mana, and talk to Solange about things. And while they're there, somebody comes in. The
Sovereign Knight Commander comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially to talk to the librarian. Initially, Raublut came into the library to talk to Solange about the hidden archive, essentially. An archive that only royalty can enter. Because Rosamine, during the first inquiry, implied that there was such an archive that only royalty know about.
While they're there, he spots Rosamine and Ferdinand, and there's this tension that's just been there since the inquiry.
It brings up that Ferdinand is something called a seat of 𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐄𝐒.
We don't know what it is. Rosamine doesn't know what it is, and we're not told what it is. In fact, Ferdinand just kind of like clams up about it and just says, you know,
He says, no, Ehrenfest is my geduld.
Ehrenfest is my geduld, yeah. Again, noble speak, we don't know exactly what seat of 𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐄𝐒 is, and if it's a noble euphemism, we don't know. That's something we're gonna learn.
What I will say,
something to look forward to for Volume 8. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, this is something that actually the translator had a little bit of, seemed to be kind of hesitant. He was trying to figure out what would be the proper use, because he didn't. Originally, he translated it as fruit of 𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐄𝐒, but he doesn't. The thing is, when you say a fruit of something, you imply like maybe someone's offspring, the offspring of someone, and in this case, the translation doesn't translate really well to English. But it's not that. It doesn't imply. It's not meant to imply that
the
meaning.
Offspring. It's a different meaning, and in the Japanese original, they have a word or a kanji that it cannot be easily translated. It could be, that kanji could be seed, it could be fruit, it could be all kinds of things. And while it makes sense in Japanese to use it, like the Japanese readers could understand the context that it carried, it just doesn't carry well into the English. So yeah, I saw lots of Reddit posts, and even 𝐷𝐿𝐵 did a post in itself, and talking about it and his struggles about it, because this is gonna come up though in next volume and beyond. So
I'd recommend that we have it. We link to that in the video description.
I'll look for it and I'll link it, but please keep in mind that it will have spoilers. So light novel readers, beware, okay? Do not click it, do not go look for it until maybe we get to part 5. Okay? Just
so what you're saying is I should not click it.
Don't click it. It's very interesting stuff, but I forget if it was flared as a web novel reader or if it was flared as light novel readers, or as untranslated. So just be careful. Where were we? So yeah, we got the seat of 𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐄𝐒, and then we get this ominous feel. It's unresolved, it's open-ended, and that's where the chapters themselves come to a close. And that's the scene. I imagine that's the scene where we get the cover, where Rosamine and Ferdinand are walking. So I like that. Another thing though is we have in the cover, front and center, we have Anastasius and 𝐿, and throughout this whole book we didn't get them at all. I'm like, what is going on?
No, we did.
Yeah, I know, that's where we're getting to. So can you tell us, please? Can you tell us, Crazy?
Okay, so it was during the inter-duchy tournament, before Dunkelfugger came in to give his challenge for the transcription. Both Anastasius and 𝐿 decided to visit Ehrenfest's spot. And essentially, basically, they were asking, they said a euphemism, essentially saying, like, what are your plans? What are you going to do with, if the sovereignty asks you to bless, do the blessings as the high, instead of the high bishop? And basically, Ferdinand responded that it's not our responsibility, but we will follow royalty's orders.
Yes, I had forgotten about that actually, so thank you for bringing that up. And then we also get the epilogue is actually an Anastasius and 𝐿 story.
I think she's slowly turning from I want peace to I want something else.
So in this epilogue, Anastasius and 𝐿, they're engaged. They have a heart-to-heart. It's after the terrorist attack. So 𝐿 comes to see him, and basically after while they're talking, she opens up about what happened and about the trauma of her past. And in the end, she really hesitates about talking about her real wish, what she wants to do, like what she wishes could happen, because it kind of like goes against royalty and who the king is. But her one wish ultimately is to have a legitimate ZENT.
And because the whole reason for why there's even any kind of struggle between the sovereignty and the church is because the current king doesn't have a 𝐏𝐑𝐎𝐋𝐄. If just getting a 𝐏𝐑𝐿𝐋𝐄 would solve all the problems and stop another civil war from occurring, that's essentially what she wants.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if she says that, it's implied. It would imply that she thinks that the current king is not fit to rule, which is why she doesn't want to say anything.
Yes, that's why she was very hesitant to tell the king's own son about her wish. So she had to really they've been working on their relationship. You can see that Eglantine and Anastasius have really been taken Rosamine's words to heart, to be open with each other, to not hide behind euphemisms, and they've been working on communication. It took a lot of guts for Eglantine to admit it, but she did it. Anastasius, in response, he actually did not get upset that she basically said, your father needs to get his act together. We need a king, maybe not your father, but we need a legit king with a 𝐁𝐷𝐻𝐿. He didn't get upset. He actually went and swore, he understood where she came from, and he swore that he will, and I quote, sacrifice all else to protect you and search for the 𝐁𝐷𝐻𝐿. Interesting choice of words.
That's some heavy implications right there.
Heavy implications, because that would be sacrificing everything. What is he going to sacrifice? His family? The fact that his father is a king? I don't know. It's just...
Especially since he supposedly decided to not seek the throne and give the throne to Sigiswald, his brother.
Yeah. Just
so that he could marry Eglantine. But now that Eglantine told him she wishes for a true ZENT, then what's he gonna do? If his only option is to get the 𝐁𝐷𝐻𝐿 himself, then what does he mean by sacrifice everything? Yeah. Does it mean that he's gonna try to seek the throne? Does it mean that he's gonna try to seek advice from maybe Rosamine, a certain high bishop that might know something?
Yeah.
Because it's implied that he thinks that Rosamine knows something.
Yeah, Anastasius is a very sharp kid. I think between him and his older brother, he's a better fit for king. But yeah, we're gonna see in the future where that oath, that promise, is gonna lead us to. And another thing, an extra fun bit, we get to see how he also tries to seduce Eglantine. Ooh! Lots of, lewdness here. They're holding hands, and she feels a warmth and an embarrassment and a shyness. And then, thankfully, somebody broke the tension and, saved her, because Anastasius was going for it, Thank goodness that his tenant stepped in and, kind of intervened there. And that kind of leads us into the next two stories.
Oswin. Right.
Yeah, Oswin. That's right. That's the name of the attendant. Oswin steps in and, he's like, the second stories are also, that kind of sets the tone for the next couple of side stories. The first one is Clarissa and Hartmut, Conversation at the Gazebo. Which, as we know, gazebos are meant for places where Royal Academy students will meet to have romantic rendezvous with their significant others. But there's something about this rendezvous that's just not like all the other rendezvous around them.
Well, they're not alone. When Clarissa finally arrives to the gazebo that Hartmut told her, Hartmut was there with both Philine and Roderick.
That was so funny to me. She was expecting a different kind of rendezvous, but he was in for other things. Rosamine has no other scholars except these three. One arch scholar, that is Hartmut. One med scholar, which is Roderick, who doesn't have experience in doing the things that Hartmut usually does. And, poor Philine, she's a lay scholar. So Hartmut is like, yo, Clarissa, we're gonna get married, but you're gonna have to like step in and support these kids because they don't know how to do the jobs that I do. They don't know how to collect information. Like they do other things. But first of all, look at this kid. He points at Roderick and he's like, he has little mana. He's like this and that and that. He's like basically tears him apart. So mean. Poor Roderick.
But he also points out that Rosamine essentially seeks competence in a way that other nobles would seek. Basically, she seeks what interests her. So he points out that Roderick makes stories for her, and that's why he's his retainer. Mm-hmm. And the same thing for Filion. Filion gathers stories for her, so that's why she was chosen as well. Mm-hmm. But Hartmut is her only normal retainer in the sense that he's the only one who's actually qualified to do the things that a normal scholar would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but only normal in that way.
Yeah.
Right. Everything else is a bit much.
And also, one of the things that was interesting to note here is that Clarisse was like, well, usually, just by introducing me to her, she would accept me because you're already her trusted scholar. So what is going on here? Like, why do I still have to prove myself if on top of you introducing me to her? Like, what's going on here? And then she realizes, wait a minute, you don't have her full, like, trust, do you? Basically, Hartmut, because he's been such a weirdo, like, being like, Rosamine can't really, like, trust him, like, doesn't rely on him too much because he's just such a fanatic of her. He's a very competent fellow, but she can't see past that the fact that somebody like him would introduce Clarisse and say like, hey, this is my beloved, or like my intended, like you should take her in too because she's also a scholar, and he can't do that. It's basically another one of him, so she has to prove herself, and that was pretty sharp of Clarisse. She's a sharp girl, and we saw that in this story. We saw how she went and little by little eliminated competition. Yeah, she's not Hartmut, but she's a very competent scholar in her own right. And again, because they're not normal, once Filion and Roderick go away, they spend time together, the way the couples should. But instead of
talking about Rosamine.
Yeah, instead of spending sweet, make out time or holding hands time or whatever time, they spend the time praising Rosamine, and Clarisse was very, very happy with that. She was like, there's no better way for us to spend time than to talk about Rosamine. And finally, the final story is the very straightforward, I guess you could say, love story of Leonor and Cornelius.
Cornelius really does pay attention to Leonor's interests, and he uses that to his advantage.
Yeah, so Cornelius did his research, and Cornelius did all the things that Leonor in her maidenly heart has wished to experience, and he makes it come true.
It gives us more insight onto, as this is Leonor's point of view, it gives us more insight onto why Leonor thinks so highly of Cornelius, and the inciting incident of their relationship, and how they work so well together, and then how she's basically breaks down mentally because she doesn't know how to handle how quickly Cornelius moves. Like, here, let's go to the gazebos. And I was like, she doesn't say no, but she's like still stuck in her mind. While Cornelius is just like, okay, let's go in my high beast. You don't have to use yours. So he just grabs her and puts her on his high beast before she can even say yes or no. But she doesn't like go run away or anything. So it's not like she doesn't want to. It's just that her brain is melting due to how embarrassed she is. Mm-hmm. But she does like how he holds on to her as they're riding the high beast, and how it's such an exclusive thing, because it's implied that if you're riding on the high beast with somebody of the opposite sex, it's only going to be with your beloved or if with a child. Yeah. So it's even more proof like, hey, look, we're in a relationship. because we're both in the same high beast and we're both going to the gazebos. It's like it's advertising their relationship essentially.
Even the lewd hand holding, which is, oh my goodness,
covered by his cape, as if he were the god of darkness, enveloping his goddess of light.
Yeah. So, she was shy, but she was not averse to any of that at all. She liked it, and we certainly as readers enjoyed seeing that those little side stories that tell us basically how courtship in nobles works out, at least with couples like Cornelius and Leonore. We see Leonore, who's a very, very competent woman, and so we have Elvira, right? Elvira has two sons. We have 𝐏𝐑𝐿, Cornelius, and Lamprecht, and they're all supposed to have wives that will support the family, or, just be, I guess, carry the torch after she goes. So 𝐏𝐑 refuses to get married, and once he does eventually get married, it will be Angelica, who is definitely not fit to, carry the torch after Elvira. Then we have Lamprecht, who is married to Aurelia. And Aurelia is a nice enough, sweet girl, but she's also very shy, and she's really not fit to become that, that stalwart personage in society, I suppose. And then we have Leonore, who we almost pin our hopes on. And I think she's a very, very, very competent person. I think she would be very good addition to the family in that respect, because somebody needs to take over from Elvira. And I think Leonore, being a strategist, is going to help her a lot in the future. So Cornelius chose very, very well here. Good for him, Cornelius. To end such an ominous kind of tone, the book itself ended with an ominous tone, but I thought it was really, really nice of Miya Kazuki to finish out with side stories that are more lighthearted. So she did a little thing to balance there. So I thought that was really nice of her.
Sheena also helped too with a great bonus manga for this episode, for this volume.
If we were to describe this novel, what would be a word or a phrase, or a couple of words or phrases that would describe this novel?
I would say foreboding. This volume covers a lot of the nuances of the fundamentalists in the church, and how their plans are to overthrow the current ZENT, and why they would want to.
That's right.
Rosemine thought that the church had a lot more power in the past, and it sounds like they want to get their influence back.
I guess I would describe it as kind of a calm, because it starts off pretty calm, and then near the end of the volume it gets a little bit crazy. It's kind of, I guess, eerie would be a better way to put it, because just something doesn't feel right, but it's not as action-packed as the previous volume or any of that.
For real, in the previous volume we had the tennis befallen attack, and that leads to the events of this. This is the aftermath of what happened.
For me, it would be just, being able to see the quirkiness of different obs doing their thing, like the thing with Dunkelfelker, and then just seeing just his very Dunkelfelker way of doing things to the extreme.
Yeah.
And the level of politics that's going on in just a simple meeting between church and state.
We're now basically in the thick of this conflict between church and state, and it's how it's going to play out in the future. It's anyone's guess. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to in the next couple of volumes. Let's see where that leads us.
I really do like all the extra information we get. Essentially, the background of the church. It gives us a lot more information of the history of this world's religion. The way it had a lot of more power before. How it explains how it lost its power 200 years ago, and how it looks today, how it impacts current politics, and it really shows that although Rosemine is really doing a lot of these things like spreading printing on her own volition, it shows how she's changing this world for the better, because preservation of knowledge has been shown in this entire series, has been shown that the lack of preservation of knowledge is basically what's causing all these problems.
Yeah.
Because it is, if they knew how to, for example, the handle salt miracle, if they preserved the knowledge of how to create these stages, then it wouldn't have been as much of a problem. If the knowledge of how a ZENT was chosen by basically sending your archduke's children to the temple as high bishops, then if that knowledge wasn't lost, then maybe we never would have had a 𝐿𝐶𝐶 king to begin with. And this whole situation with the sovereignty and the temple would never have come at odds.
My favorite is the inquiry, because Rosemine was just packing heat in that and all the action scenes at the end. It was a pretty fun volume to read. Though I'll just parrot what everyone else is saying, is that plenty of great lore being divulged in this volume, which is what the real appeal of this story is, all this lore.
What Miya Kazuki has done all this time is build a world little by little and give it layers and layers of like so much stuff going on. But she never really overwhelms us because she presents it at the right time, at just the right moment. So I can't.
She spoon feeds it.
Yeah, so I can't imagine if we had been told this information back in part 3 or something like that. Like, Ferdinand is gonna give her a lecture about royalty and nobility. Like, no, that's not the right time, because we wouldn't have cared. But now that Rosemine is in the middle, now that there seems to be like she's getting involved, like, we need to know more information about this. Please tell us now. So this is when we get this information. So there's a lot of things that we don't know yet. But knowing Miya Kazuki, we will get that information at the right moment, and I am looking forward to like those questions that need to be answered, like who exactly is like Ferdinand? Why can he see all those things? Why is he, or why did Raublut call him the seed of Adalgisa? And what did Ferdinand mean by Ehrenfest is my Geduld? How's that gonna play out in the future? And we meet a lot of new characters that I'm sure we're gonna revisit. I'm sure that this is not the last time we're gonna see Religion or Emmanuel or Raublut. We're gonna see them soon. So I'm dreading it, but looking forward to it for the drama. Overall, it's a great book that manages to give us more information, but while giving us more information, it creates more questions. And I think that's one of the high points of it, because I can't wait to delve into part 4, volume 8. And that is going to be released soon. Anything that you're looking forward to in the next book?
A storm is going to start looming by, because we know that part 4, volume 9 is the conclusion. And if you've read the endings of part 1, part 2, and part 3, you realize lots of crazy things happen at the last end. So storm has to start looming in.
As a sole light novel reader, I'm excited for a few things. A little bit more on what's going on between her attendants. A little bit more going on with what her magic's doing, how she's gonna overcome her leaks. I am looking forward to when she finally has her muscles back. Because that's been so hard on her. And she really needs her body back. Another thing I'm looking forward to is just I'm wanting to see her kind of pop off a little bit more. She's trying to hide. Actually, I'm wanting her to actually, finally see a full graduation ceremony.
Aw, yeah. We'll see.
That's my goal.
All right, everybody. Well, this book is going to drop on August 10th. The wait isn't too long. I've been hearing things from the pre-pub, and I read posts from the pre-pubs, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.
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 All right, bye, Magpie.
Bye. Well, this quote-unquote quick summary / review turned out to be over 2 hours long. And again, while we recorded this, we just had a blast with all kinds of tangents about the Ascendance of a Bookworm. So I trimmed it down as much as I could. There's nothing more to say except I hope you enjoy Part 4, Volume 8. As to this volume, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. What your favorite scene was, and what you think is going to happen in the next volume based on the events of this one. Now remember, no spoilers past this volume. Thank you all. Until next time, bye bye.